This is Dom Bettinelli, the CEO of SQPN, with a brief but very important message. For more than a decade, SQPN has produced the Catholic faith and pop culture podcasts that you love. We're a nonprofit organization, so it's only your generosity that lets us carry out our mission. We haven't run a fundraiser in 2 years, and that's why we need to ask for your help right now. Please make a pledge of whatever amount you can afford to help us continue providing your favorite podcasts, as well as exciting new ones we have planned. To make your pledge and find out about the free thank you gifts we'd like to send you, visit sqpn.com/give. That's sqpn.com/give. Thank you for your generosity. May we hear from you today? You're listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of the New Fall 2018 TV Shows, where we will discuss our first impressions of some of the new shows on the networks this fall. We can't discuss them all, of course, but we'll discuss some of the ones that have stood out to us as most interesting new shows, and we're just focusing on new shows. And joining me today on the panel are Joanne Mercier. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Dom. How you doing?
Great. And Lisa Hendy. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Dom. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Lisa.
So before we get started, I want to just have a quick message for folks. SQPN is the network that produces Secrets of Movies and TV shows, as well as a bunch of other shows that you may be interested in, you may have already been watching. You can find them all at sqpn.com. Earlier this year, the board of SQPN decided that if we want to continue to focus on our mission, which is, as our full name implies, Star Quest Production Network. We are helping people in their quest for the Bethlehem star to Jesus Christ, and the way we do that is through looking at pop culture and media and other aspects of the culture around us, and find the hidden layers, deeper meanings that can draw us closer to Jesus, and as well as frankly, to be entertained by it as well, the good aspects of it, and to help people kind of sift through it and find things that are interesting to them. So the board decided earlier this year that if we're going to really focus on our mission, we have to do more than what we were doing, which was limping along with one podcast. And but in order to do that, we needed to hire a full-time person to take on the duties of producing, engineering, hosting, promoting, all those things. It's a full-time job. And so they hired me. I was already doing this part-time, but I came on full-time to be the CEO of SQPN. We have many volunteers. We have a volunteer board. We have many volunteers who, as you've heard on this podcast, contribute to the podcast of their own time. But we needed to have a person doing full-time work. So in order to do that, I have to feed my family and pay my mortgage, so they pay me a salary, and that is where the giving campaign comes in. SQPN has for many years relied on the generosity of listeners like you, and we have turned to you many times over the years. But we haven't done that in the last 2 years. We have not had a giving campaign, and frankly, the cupboard is getting a little bare. Our resources are getting thin. And we need to turn to you again and ask if you can go to sqpn.com/give, click on the Become a Patron button, and become a monthly pledger to SQPN, and at whatever amount you can give. And or if you want, there's also a button to make a one-time donation. But if you make a pledge, it helps us with our budgeting and planning. Now, this is in addition to supporting the podcast, there's actually some additional benefits for you as a patron. We're going to have some all patron level benefits where we'll have like special podcasts or special episodes and that sort of thing. But we also have, for at different giving levels, we're going to be giving away some thank you gifts that we've selected that are related to some of the shows we do. So there are Doctor Who related thank you gifts, there's Star Trek related thank you gifts, and then there's gifts related to our newest show, Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, which has been a lot of fun. People are loving it. If you haven't listened to it yet, go download an episode and give it a listen. Jimmy is amazing. He's a font of knowledge. And I do the show with him. I try to just keep up. But it's a blast. I'm loving it, and it's a lot of fun to listen to. And so there are some gifts related to that. So if you can, please go to right away, because we need your help right now, frankly. If you can go to sqpn.com/give to help us keep making these shows so that you'll continue to have this inspirational, formational, and entertaining content that SQPN produces, and for the stuff that we're planning to make in the future. And again, we've got stuff on the back burner that's coming soon, but we can only do that if you can help us now. So sqpn.com/give. Thank you so much. So we come to our topic today. Thank you for your patience, Lisa and Joanne. And we're going to talk about a couple of different shows that we've all kind of at least seen several episodes of, or all of the episodes of. And these are some shows that we might recommend, or maybe we don't recommend, but are interesting to talk about. And one of the biggest shows so far this new fall TV season is a show called God Friended Me, which it's CBS. And so the summary of it is the main character's name is Miles. He's an atheist whose life was turned upside down when God adds him as a friend on Facebook. And this God account on Facebook starts sending him on tasks to help people to do various things that are, to do some good in the world. And he brings some friends along with him. So, Joanne, what have you thought about this show so far, the God Friended Me? What's your first impression of it?
Well, so far, I think it's Touched by an Angel 2.0 for the millennial set, because
right.
it bears a lot of similarities. And I was a huge fan of Touched by an Angel back in the day. So I see a lot of similarities in it, but I like the way it's rolling, because you have Miles, who is now an avowed atheist, his father, who is a minister, which already sets up lots of tension. And then he's dragging his best friend and somebody new that he's just met.
Yes.
In Kara. And so it's very, very interesting. CBS has always been very friendly to God-type, faith-type shows.
Right.
Some of them hit, some of them miss. But I think they're trying again. And I like the premise where God actually friends you. That's interesting. Yeah. And you have the choice to unfriend him or, mute him, poke him, just that whole kind of, stuff that Facebook does. So I find it intriguing. It's not overly sappy yet. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I think it looks very, very promising if they stay where they are right now.
How about you, Lisa? What do you think of God Friended Me?
I love that. First of all, that the format is that he's a podcaster, so that's an awesome thing.
Yes.
And
although it's not how podcasting actually works, folks.
Yeah, you didn't get that call from Sirius, Don. No, I love that there's an acknowledgement that podcasting can be a venue for seeking and relationships, and so I think that's what we try to do at SQPN. And I think what Miles is going through in his personal search for understanding. Impacts his relationships. He's a preacher's kid. I love Joe Morton.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see him in this role where he's good as opposed to so evil as he was in Scandal. Sometimes it wraps up a little too neatly. Stick through the pilot. I'm not a huge fan of pilot episodes. And the pilot, I just kind of rolled my eyes at the end because it was like, oh, that was just too quick and easy. But but if you stick with it, I think you'll see that there's a lot to love about this program.
Yeah, one of the things that makes it unique. So there have been other shows like Touched by an Angel, but also there was one like Early Edition, which is sort of 20 some odd years ago, where it wasn't Facebook, it was a newspaper that for the younger folks, that's this thing that gets delivered to your house every day with the news on it. And it's printed on paper. And it was a guy who got tomorrow's paper today, and it helped him go and and help people. I mean, there have been a lot of shows like that. Person of Interest was kind of like that, where people get this message from someone that sends them to go help people. But this one is, like you said, Joanne, it seems to be aimed at the millennial set. And one of the things that really kind of defines it is their use of technology. Like, so you see pop up on screen their smart, like their iPhone screen, because they're all iPhones, where he uses I gotta make sure I don't activate anything, the S word, Siri, make sure it doesn't beep, iMessage. You see maps, reminders, you see all of these different, all of the technology that he uses Facebook. Although I have to as a technical person myself, some of the depiction of how technology and social media works, it leaves a lot to be desired. This is not how these things work, folks. You can't trace, what was it? You can't trace the location of a photo was taken,
geotagging,
right? Yes,
through a Facebook post. You just get that Facebook won't let you do that. So I mean, but that said, I mean, we have to give some allowances for things. I do like that. It kind of, it appeals to the audience you're going for, which is clearly not just even millennials, but that group that is sometimes called nuns, N-O-N-E-S, those who don't have any belief. And that's the main character, Miles. He's clearly not just an atheist, but he's clearly very dedicated to it. I mean, he has a podcast about atheism, about being an atheist. And so he seems dedicated to it. And that's almost one of my criticisms, and see if you follow me on this, which is the characters don't seem to progress from episode to episode. Especially Miles always seems to start in the same intellectual location he does at the beginning of every episode. No matter what happens, it seems like he
disagree.
does. Okay, no, so good. So tell me where I'm off on that.
Go ahead, Lisa.
So, that specifically comes up in the second episode when his podcast is acquired by this big network, but the producer of the podcast wants him to take this extremely hard line on, being no questions asked, absolutely atheistic. And he's already begun to have this experience with the God account that's caused him, I think, to begin to ask big questions for himself. And that's what he really wants to talk about on the podcast. And that gets shut down by the producer. And ultimately he discerns maybe this dream that I've always had isn't, what I really was destined to have.
But that would be great, except then the very next episode, when anything comes, when the God account comes up again, he is just as skeptical as he was before. Like, so in the context of that one episode, he progresses. But then at the beginning of the next episode, he is as adamantly opposed to seeing the nose on his face of anything supernatural or unusual. He's so adamant about it. And then he progresses through the episode, and then we get to the beginning of the next episode, and we're back where we were. And I mean, maybe they want to take it slow. Maybe that's the idea. Maybe even through the course of a season or two. Because if I get it, if you move him along too fast, you run out of premise, I guess.
No, but I also think that's exactly what a faith journey is all about. I mean, having worked with folks who come into the Catholic Church, they can go back to step one very, very quickly when something happens in their life or doesn't happen in their life. So I think with Miles starting out, he's always trying to start out from the intellectual, but the emotional is starting to get to him. And that's,
right.
He built up I think he built a big wall on himself after his, the tragic occurrence. Are we doing spoilers here or?
I think we need to be careful not to spoil too much, because we're trying to share for people who might want to watch. So,
right.
So your instinct is best. Yeah.
Right. So what he went through in his childhood, that is coloring him now as he goes forward.
Okay.
And Dom, you may be onto something too, because it has actually been picked up for a season 2. That was just announced.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. In fact, all of the ones we're going to talk about, as far as I can tell, except for, well, the ones that have been picked up, I'll just say right now, is Manifest. We're going to talk about New Amsterdam, God, Friend of Me, and FBI have all been picked up for full seasons. I think we're going to talk about A Million Little Things. that has been picked up for additional episodes, but not yet a full season commitment. So we'll see how. Yeah. So yeah, all of these are shows that if you invest some time into them now, you're not gonna suddenly be cut off after episode 4, hopefully. And one of the things that's interesting about the show, and we'll move on to the next show we're going to talk about, but one thing that's interesting about this show is the show's concept of God is very similar to what you see. Like CBS is I'd say the most open to talking about God in their shows, but it's very similar. It's not a liturgical God. It's not even a God who demands a lot of specific moral activity on our part, but it's sort of God who's a helper, a nudger, who helps people with their problems and wants us to be nice to each other. So it's and there's nothing wrong with that. That describes God at a certain level. But it doesn't really much go beyond that so far. So that's
you've also seen that God is displeased with things as well, as he was in the second episode where he changed his avatar. To make sure Miles got that he was displeased with what was going on.
Well, he's mainly displeased when Miles refuses to help somebody at his urging.
Yeah.
Right.
So far.
Right.
But one thing Lisa said before with how the pilot ended, I think all pilots have to have that sort of definitive ending so they can sell the show.
Yeah.
So I think I try to go to the second and third episodes before I say, is this going to be a neat little ending every week, or is this going to continue to grow?
Right.
But I think that's what happens with pilots.
Yeah, I have what I call the Star Trek: The Next Generation rule, which is if I think I'm going to be interested in a show, I give it 6 episodes, no matter how bad the first few are, which described Star Trek: The Next Generation years ago. And if I can get past 6 episodes and I'm liking it, then I will commit to it. But if I get to 6 and it's still not good, I'm done. So that's my Star Trek: The Next Generation rule. Also, I've updated to call it the Fringe rule, because Fringe was that way with me. I mistakenly gave up on Fringe after 3 or 4 episodes, and then when people said no, you got to go back, and I went back, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a mistake. This has gotten good. So anyway, so let's move on to our next show that we'll talk about, which is Manifest. Which
oh boy,
loved it.
I forgot to mark down what networks these are on. I don't pay attention to. It's all
Manifest
DVR for me.
Is NBC.
NBC. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Manifest is. So here's the quick summary. After a turbulent but routine flight, the passengers and crew of this on this flight discover that the world has aged 5.5 years, yet no time has passed for them, and so there's a deep mystery unfolding. And so it feels a lot, as I said to my wife Melanie, I said it feels a lot like Lost. It's but only but really after they get back from being lost on the island, that sort of thing. So they've been away and now they're back. Although
are they actually back?
Exactly.
No, I think they are actually back.
So there's a bit of a mystery here. I have to say, it's not as good as Lost at its storytelling. But what is, I just have to say, but it's enjoyable. It's got an interesting mystery. It's unfolding, and it's not just about the mystery. It's some interesting character development going on. The plot, the people from the flight and the people they left behind as they deal with this unusual event. So what have you thought of Manifest so far? I'll start with you this time, Lisa.
So Greg and I watched this, and he said the same thing about the acting, that he didn't consider the acting as good. And I said, well, if we were to look back at early Lost, were those characters actually as well defined? Probably, I'd submit not. Yeah. I really like the premise that a family kind of splits itself in half because you have this mom and dad, and the interesting thing to me is that the twins, are separated and one ages and the other remains the same age. That choice, Dom, you could probably see you and Melanie doing that with your kids, divide and conquer, and half the family moves on and the other half is stuck in time. I just think it's an interesting premise, and I'm really interested in watching how this plays out.
Yeah. How about you, Joanne?
Well, I've got to say I've done a lot of analysis on this one, because immediately in the pilot, I was getting hit with biblical references.
Oh, yes,
so
that's very clear.
Immediately. So I carried them out to like episode 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And whoever is writing this has a good command of really hidden Bible verses.
Like and Romans 8:28.
Oh, yes. Or Lisa, I mean, in the second episode, I found Matthew 28. In the third episode, I found John 8 and Luke 8. So we're talking, somebody has a good command of this, and they're putting them in purposely.
Yeah.
So, and it's following a thread. I don't know how long they'll be able to keep that up, but every episode has something going on behind it. And if you're versed in it, you find it.
So the flight is Flight 828. It's a Montego Air. It was a Jamaican airline. And the verse from the first episode is Romans 8:28, which is, and we know that all things work together for good for those who love God. And these Bible verses, most of them are like this one is like very clearly we can almost call her the main character. Or there's several main characters, but let's say Michaela's mom. She quotes it to her daughter in the very beginning. It's very obvious. And then she needle points it on a pillow. So this one is very clearly supposed to be like, we're supposed to make this connection right up front in the first episode. The other verses are not quite as obvious, as you point out, Joanne. But there's obviously someone trying to hint at some religious references in here. But yet it's not clear that this is that something religious happened. It could be God, it could be aliens, it could be a secret 3-letter government agency, it could be the Illuminati. We don't know yet. Something clearly happened, obviously. And some people are taking it as the world, that they live in. People say, this plane disappeared for 5.5 years. Then it came back and the people didn't age. And some people say it's a miracle. Some people say it's apocalyptic. Some say it's a government conspiracy. So it's within the show you're getting this. So it's very interesting. But those verses are about as close to any religion as we get so far. So far, it's early.
So far, yeah, I would say so. But there are other little things too. See, I can analyze the shows to death if I have to, and especially if it intrigues me. This one has me intrigued because I want to see where it's going to go. In this past episode, this past week, when Michaela is in the bar with Jared, they are playing "Knocking on Heaven's Door" in the background.
Oh,
so,
right.
Yeah, and I heard it
yes.
as a musician. I heard it immediately, and I'm like, "Oh, gee, you got to be kidding me!" But so there are things all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I think what I would think what the writers are doing are trying to get the two different audiences. The audience that's going to follow it as a mystery, but then the audience that's going to follow it as more than a mystery. So I think they're purposely, setting their sights on these two audiences to carry the day. And I think they might succeed.
Yeah, it could be, and it's interesting you mentioned that the two audiences, the two levels you can enjoy this on, because for me, almost more compelling than the mystery of how did it happen and who's manipulating them, because there's some sort of callings or manipulations. Actually, it's very similar to God Friend to Me in that way. But there's another aspect, which is the relationships, and so you have like a husband and wife who got separated. You have a fiance and her fiance and her best friend who she got separated from. You have the twins who are now, they're twins, but 5 years apart in biological age, and parents and children who are, and so it's these people who were separated and then brought back together again after half of them thought it would never happen. And then the other half who didn't even know, like, are still grieving what happened because it's just fresh. And the thing that's really the momentous aspect of it is nobody did anything wrong in this. The people who flew on the plane, they didn't do it. They just flew on a plane. The people who thought they were dead and moved on with their lives, well, they thought there was no expectation that they're going to go travel through time or whatever it is they did. But yet they're all facing painful choices as a result of that. And I really enjoy seeing how that works out in their lives. Especially for me, because like you all, as being married and to think about how does that work? How does that the pain and the in the married couple as they deal with. And we find out, I think, in the first episode that the wife who got left behind moved on and started a new relationship. And so, what does she do about that? You know, and it's wow. I mean, that's so powerful in that.
Yeah, it really is. It's incredible that they're dealing with all kinds of these different topics. But I think it's interesting because if you take it from a Christian perspective, and all I could think of when you were saying that, Don, was, you know, when the Son of Man returns, he will pit mother-in-law against, you know, daughter-in-law. And I'm thinking that whole thing. And that's what it's setting itself up right now, because you can see what's happened. The other people had to move on, but these people are still stuck into 5 years ago with their emotions and their feelings and what their lives were supposed to be at that time. So it's going to be an interesting. I'm in for the long haul on this one. This one I would recommend. This is a binge watcher. If you haven't started it, you know, you will get hooked, if not by the story, but by all the other, you know, geeky biblical things that sort of get sprinkled.
Right. One of the things that so this again, they get these. What do they call them? Callings or feelings, where they feel like, or they hear voices that call them to help somebody, which again, like I said, is like God friend in me. At one point, a couple of them are seeing these visions, and if you're a Doctor Who fan, you're going to get creeped out immediately because it's the Weeping Angels.
Oh no!
but of course it's not. But it is a statue of an angel that has come alive to kind of guide them. But it's interesting. One thing I did not like is in I think the most recent episode. Well, I'll try not to spoil it, but one of the family members who wasn't on the flight advises someone who was to break up a relationship in order to get back the relationship that they lost. And I'm like, I
didn't care for that either.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, they wanted to break up a marriage to get back this and I'm like, that's not good. It's not the same thing as the couple who were married getting, you know, staying together because they're already married. So it's like, but we'll see how those choices play out. It's a very interesting aspect of it. So, anything left to say about Manifest? Any last thoughts on Manifest? So we'll move on.
Just the finale better be better than the finale of Lost. I'm still bitter.
All right, we're going to have to. We have talked about doing a podcast called Lost Again, where my wife Melanie and I are going to go back and rewatch Lost from a perspective of how many years it's been. I think it's been 8 years. And we'll explain the ending when we get to that. So we'll see if we can get to that.
Okay, good. I'll hang in for that.
So the next show I want to talk about is A Million Little Things. But I'm not sure, Lisa, you've seen this one.
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have not, unfortunately.
Okay, so Lisa, I'll get your take on it. So the summary is a group of friends become motivated to live fuller lives after the unexpected death of one of their group. It's set in Boston, yay! And the Bruins are a centerpiece, so that's one reason why I like it. Another reason I like it is James Roday, the actor. I loved him in Psych, and he's still the snarky, funny guy in this one too. But Lisa, what's your take on Million Little Things?
Yeah, it's funny when I was in prep for this, Dom, I gave each of these, and Joanne kind of said before, Touched by an Angel 2.0, and for me, this is 13 Reasons for Men. That definitely, this immediately took me back to 13 Reasons Why, and the whole suicide, post-suicidal contemplation of friendships. I didn't watch this one with my husband, but I told him after I watched it, we're going to go back and watch this together. Because I think that I'm really interested in his emotional reaction to it. What's curious to me is, the model of friendship between men in this, and how, at the center of this is, what's been a longstanding friendship. And yet it took this very pivotal act of a suicide to make those friends re-examine both their relationship with one another and then their lives as well. So there's a lot to say is not faithful about this, like hookup culture and
I did not like that aspect. Yeah.
And also, the question of marriage, the sanctity of marriage, and all that. So,
one of the things, so you brought up a couple of things that I also observed. One of the things I like is actually there is a marital infidelity that's exposed. But one of the things I like about this show is that it has consequences, real consequences that people really deal with. They don't just walk away. They struggle with it. And it causes consequences in the friendships. And it upends expectations where one of the people in the couples where the infidelity took place, we thought, oh, that's a bad person. And that person sort of, well, they kind of deserve it because they were bad. And then I think they kind of reverse that. And they're like, no, there's more to it than you think about this person. They're not such a bad person, are they? And, they really don't deserve this. And so they kind of upend those expectations a little bit, which I thought was good. I mean, infidelity unfortunately happens. So it's sort of examining that in its consequences, and it has consequences. You also mentioned like the looking at male relationships, and like, you know what? I mean, all friendships are different, and their friend group of male friends is going to be different from my group of male friends. But there's some similarities, and it's nice to see an examination of how guys work, how our friendships work. And there's always the one guy who's the planner who, makes sure that, we all do a thing together. There's another guy who's the funny guy. There's another, there's always like these different personalities within the group. And it sort of looks at what happens when you pull the thread, in the person who may in fact be the central figure in the friendship. And in this, he's very clearly the central figure of the friendship, and you pull them out. What happens to not just the guys, but the families that have had relationship with each other because of it, and you see how suicide has ripple effects outward, and in friends.
Dom, I wanted to say something about that too, because when I covered 13 Reasons Why when it came out, and one of the big things that was controversial about that is the suicide trigger that can be present for some people, and that was vastly discussed. And while this is a little less kind of immediately gratuitous in its presentation of suicide, I didn't notice a disclaimer when I watched it online. I don't know if you saw one, but they actually have suicide prevention information on their website for this show. And I'd just say to anybody who has suicidal ideations or family members that do that, this is one of those, don't watch this show. Yeah. Because this can be problematic. So
good point. Very good point. Yeah. We want to make sure, I think if I don't think back to that first episode, I think that they had something, but I don't recall off the top of my head. Yes, because it's also ongoing. They have lots of flashbacks, and another character in the show also actually has trouble with that same with suicidal ideation and even an attempt in the past, and so to be careful with that. Yes, that's very clearly. One of the other aspects of the show is that this is also a show with a mystery at its heart that is slowly unfolding over time. Because the question is why did the guy do it? Because it's very unclear. It's not like there was a clear reason. There wasn't a note, as far as we know yet. Someone may have hidden it.
Although, what's in that blue folder?
Exactly. One of the characters may have hidden it or taken it, so others couldn't see it. We don't yet know. So there's a mystery unfolding of why did he do what he did, and that sort of thing. So that's also interesting. There's also there's so much in the show. There's characters dealing with cancer, and the result of surviving cancer, the result of getting having it recur. So there's lots going on here, and it's it's an interesting. I'm enjoying it so far. I want it to progress, but I'm not sure if progressing and answering some questions will ruin the show or not. That's like all of the ones we just talked about. We want answers, but we don't want them too quick because we don't want to ruin the show. So,
As someone who isn't watching the show, would you liken it to This Is Us light, sort of, or in a different bend?
I've heard it compared to This Is Us. I haven't seen This Is Us. It's sort of on my list of things to go back and watch because people have been so positive about it. But I've heard it compared to This Is Us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like it.
Yeah. Especially the flashback and forward, like the seeing things in the past and things in the present, and how they affect.
I don't know about you. That makes me dizzy sometimes. So.
Keeping track. Yeah. Okay, so then another show, a little, I don't guess call it lighter, but a little less character heavy, is a new show called FBI from, what's his name? Wolf.
Dick Wolf.
Dick Wolf, right. I was going to say Mark, but that's...
Dun.
Yeah, Mark Wolf is a judge in Boston, I think. But yeah, Dick Wolf, he brought us Law and Order and SVU and all that sort of stuff. And so, no surprise, it's another procedural drama. This time about the inner workings of the New York City FBI office, where you have a special team that deals with immediate crisis cases. That's essentially what it is. It's a police procedural with a little bit of character development. It's not very heavy. Have you both seen it?
I have. I'm calling it Law and Order for the elliptical. Because you could get a pretty good sense. It's kind of like standalone episodes. I mean, there is some ongoing, but you can really pick out one episode, watch it while you're on the elliptical, and the adrenaline will keep your heart pumping while you're exercising. So.
Right, that's a good one. How about you? What's your take on it, Joanne?
Oh yeah, it's definitely Dick Wolf's style of, here's the problem, here are the people who are going to solve it. This is how long it's going to take, and there might be a twist in the middle. That is basically how he's run his franchise, and it works for him most of the time. I don't know. I think it's interesting that he has casted a definite Islamic leading man.
Yep.
So that's I hope it helps more than hurts. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm a big Law and Order fan, so I like that, but I haven't liked the others.
Right.
The original Law and Order has always been my favorite. When he starts to do it in different places, I'm not sure where he's going. So I'm not sure where he's going yet with FBI. I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence about it. I like that it's concise to each episode, but I would like to see more character. I want to know more about the two characters and where they've come from. And you don't usually get that in his shows. Yeah,
I like Maggie. I like OA, the two main characters. They're interesting, and I want to learn more about them. One of the things is that I liked about Law and Order that FBI doesn't do, which is Law and Order took a case over a long term, a realistic term. A case begins and it takes months to solve, and it takes even longer to bring it to court. That felt realistic. Most police shows, they solve every crime within 2-3 days. Which is not at all realistic. That's not how crime works. That's not how criminal investigation works. That's what they're doing here. Is most of these crimes are solved within a day or two.
But I think that's the audience attention span at this point. When Law and Order came out 20 some odd years ago, we liked that type of development. Now we want the quick fix and move on. Well,
they would do it in the course of one episode, but they would just say, 6 weeks later. I'd be happy with. I think most people would be happy with 6 weeks later. They're now coming up to the next lead or so, that they're investigating. But that's a stylistic choice that they've decided.
I'd love to hear. I really liked episode. I think it was 2, the one where Zico Zaki, who plays the Muslim character that Joanne referenced.
Yes.
We see more of a Muslim-driven plot line on that one. And I would love to hear Islamic podcasters talk about that, because I know how we feel when we see a show that's kind of Catholic-centric and what they get right and what they get wrong. To me, I found that very fascinating, especially his perspective through that episode. But I don't know how realistic it is. So.
Yeah. That's because there was another show that we actually talked about last time. I think it was on Secrets of Movies TV, the Jack Ryan show, which has one of the central characters is a Muslim convert, while the villain is a Muslim terrorist. So yeah, it would be interesting to hear from Muslim podcaster or reviewer their perspective on it. That would be interesting. One of the things that kind of sticks out to me is how many devastating terrorist attacks can New York City have in a short amount of time? Because it seems like it's getting an awful lot of them every week. One of the things that go ahead.
I was just going to say, but Dick Wolf, as far as character development, he's into the story. It's the story unfolding is what he likes to focus on. It took how many years before you knew what Sam Waterston, about his family life or about any of those characters and what they were. So you were not going to get that with a typical Dick Wolf show. I would like to see him change, but I'm not sure. If it works for him, I think that's what he's going to stick to.
I mean, even CSI was like that, where you did not learn much about the backgrounds of these people except over long spans of time. The other thing that kind of hits at the plausibility of it is how plausible is that the New York field office of the FBI, which is a very big office, there are hundreds of agents, that the two would seem like somewhat junior field agents would lead every major investigation. It's the demands of TV. I get that. So I just have to put a pin in that when I move on. So moving on, let's go to one of the ones I most anticipated for the fall season is The Rookie, starring Nathan Fillion.
Okay.
This is a podcast, ladies, so you gotta say it out loud. So, Joanne, you seem positive. Lisa, you seem negative. Let me give the summary, and then we'll go on with your impressions are. So the Rookie is apparently inspired by a true story. It's John Nolan is the oldest rookie in the LAPD. At an age where most are at the peak of their career, Nolan has cast aside his comfortable small town life in Pennsylvania, moved to LA to pursue his dream of being a cop, and now surrounded by rookies 20 years as junior, he must navigate the dangerous, humorous, and unpredictable world of a quote-unquote young cop, determined to make his second shot at life count. So, Lisa, let's go with you, because that'll be more interesting to hear the why you don't like this so far.
I have not implemented the Domenico Bettolini 6-episode rule on this. I gave up on it after the first episode, I think, which was the one where the bride was dangling from the Hollywood sign.
No, that was the second episode.
At the end. Oh, was that the second? Okay,
yeah.
I guess. Oh, actually, you know why? Because we were watching this on demand, and episode 1 wasn't available on TV, so I have to go back and watch that on TV. So I need to watch it on my computer, but that almost lost me just right there. The veil dangling scene from the Hollywood sign. I just feel like it's trying too hard, and I just thought it wasn't funny, it wasn't dramatic, I wasn't sure what it was, and I just really I don't know. I usually like that actor, but in this I just didn't care for it. So
interesting. Joanne, what did you like about it?
Okay.
Or to put it another way, why is Lisa wrong?
No, I will never say that, because like music, television is subjective.
Yes, exactly.
So, and I will say I have followed Nathan Fillion's career since he was on One Life to Live as a teenager.
Oh, wow.
So I know
so you're a fan.
I'm a fan, definitely a fan. I liked him in Castle.
Oh yeah.
I was praying this would not be Castle redux.
Exactly. It felt like at first that this might be a redo of that. Yeah.
I was afraid it might be that. But it's some of the technical aspects that I kind of like. Most of the police dramas we see, we always watch them. This time they're using body cams and also
the dash cams.
Yeah. So you're seeing things as the police see it. So in that, all of a sudden, you're getting my attention, because I want to see the story as you see it. Now, Nathan Fillion's always going to be charming and crack a joke somewhere. He's even acting a little bit more serious than Rick Castle was when he was playing that part.
Yeah.
But I think it's only been 2 episodes. So I think I want to see a few more. So far, I like it. It could go down the bad path.
It could.
There were so many little things that could, that sergeant that doesn't like him could become a stereotype. His relationships with other rookies could become a stereotype.
Right.
I'm afraid of that, because it almost looks a little like Blue Bloods in the relationship aspect. So I don't know, but so far I like it. I'm willing to give it, 2 thumbs up to keep trying, and hopefully it doesn't kill itself.
So for me, Nathan Fillion is entirely the reason why I watched it. Like if it had been just somebody I didn't know, I don't know that I even would have bothered. But I really enjoyed Nathan Fillion. I'm a browncoat. I go back to Firefly.
Oh, Firefly.
So and then my wife and I, Castle was must watch for both of us. We only ever usually have like one or two shows that we both watch together, no matter what. And this Castle was one of them. And Rookie so far has been for us. I find the character funny, but not clownish. I like the fact that it's a middle-aged guy trying to define himself, that sort of identify a little with just that being a middle-aged guy.
How old is he? Like 40?
Like early 40s.
Yeah.
When did early 40s become middle-aged? That's irritating.
I think I think for people of a certain age, 40 lifespan's about 80. So
that's very LA. The fact that a 40-year-old would be considered middle-aged.
Well, not though in LA, but I think it'd be over the hill, wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
True. Middle age would be 25.
Exactly.
I did like kind of spotting different. Greg and I were watching it, saying, "What street is that? And have we been there?" And it's fun. It's always fun. Like you liked seeing your Bruins. It's fun to see your city on TV.
Yes, well, you see LA a lot more than I see Boston, that's for sure. LA is in every show. In fact, I know the geography of the Los Angeles area and of the New York area almost as well as I know the Boston area, which is where I live. So the interesting thing about this is it's not really just about one rookie either. So you have the main character, John Nolan, but you also have. So he's the middle-aged guy who's the rookie. That's sort of the gimmick. But you also have the go-getter younger woman who's fighting stereotypes and the old boy network. You have the legacy son of a well-known cop. And so you have these three different experiences of being rookie, all of them struggling. One of the things I like is that Nolan's age it's not just that he has to struggle to overcome his old habits, his instincts. At one point he's told, that the difference between you and regular rookies is you've got 20 plus years of instincts to run the other way. Police work is about overcoming the instinct to go to do the normal survival thing and to run into danger, run into places you should run away from. So there's that aspect, but it also, his age gives him a wisdom and an experience and an empathy that younger cops might not have, so he brings something to the table, and I like that. They show that there's a humanity to Nolan, so I like so I'm glad that's an aspect. It's one of the reasons why I'm sticking with it. Couple other things.
I did like that he was afraid when he was hanging off the edge of the Hollywood sign.
Yes. Well, yes, and the use of the Hollywood sign in a show about Los Angeles. That is kind of cliched. That's the fact. One thing I did like is he lives in this amazing, beachside house. Like, this house would be millions of dollars. And when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, come on, are we doing that? Is this the Friends apartment? That no one could ever afford in their situation. And then he explains he's living in a guest house of his. It's sort of Magnum PI. He's living in the guest house of a friend who's never there. So that at least explains that why he's not living in a little rundown 1-bedroom apartment.
But I do like the humanity, the wisdom part, because even and he keeps running towards the danger. So his wisdom is not telling him to run away. His wisdom is keeping him running towards, because he's afraid of heights.
Right.
And he's up on that sign and he's like, okay, I'm going to do this anyway. So he knows what, he's able to make the good choices. But I can understand how the other police officers feel, because they had to go through the exact same thing. So the sub-story is those three officers that are their partners that are trying to train them, and that sergeant. The captain is the one who seems to have the wisdom to see that someone like John Nolan is going to be an asset if he can make it through his rookie year.
Right. And that's really what I find interesting and hopeful that it continues. Also, one of the other parts of it is the female rookie, played by Melissa O'Neill, the character is Lucy Chen. She's also a former Starship captain from a sci-fi show. She was the in Dark Matter. That was the sci-fi series that was just canceled. So we have two Starship captains on the show, Mel Reynolds
and Dom would know that,
and I would know that because I'm a nerd. So, so those are the shows I've seen. You guys mentioned that you had seen New Amsterdam and Murphy Brown. You want to take one of those, Lisa?
I'll say, yeah, I've seen both of them. I don't know, Joanne, have you seen those?
Murphy Brown and New
I have
Amsterdam?
seen.
Yeah,
I've seen episode 1 of both. So
yeah.
I can at least give you an initial impression.
So to talk about, first of all, Murphy Brown, because everybody is going to be familiar with that. I did not watch the original Murphy Brown. And after having seen, I know you're shocked by that.
That just tells me how much older I am.
Maybe having like kids at that age or something. I don't know. I don't even know when that was. But, if this were all I had ever seen of Murphy Brown were 2 or 3 episodes that I had to really, really like fight to actually watch that much of it, I would say, I'm not. It feels like they're trying too hard, and like whoever's doing the writing, it's really almost painful. I mean, politics aside, because it's very agenda driven. And I don't know if the original was that way, but I felt like that the writing in this was pretty bad, and I don't know. So, Joanne, what did you think?
The original did have political connections. There was the famous Dan Quayle, Murphy Brown spat, where Dan Quayle criticized Murphy Brown for having a child out of wedlock. Back during the first Bush administration.
Oh.
So, but go ahead, Joanne. What was your impression?
Yeah, this is a 90s show, and something my husband and I used to watch all the time, and it was smart and funny at the time. But towards the end of the run, it was getting a little long in the tooth. But I looked forward to having Murphy come back, especially now with the political climate. The first show was nice and nostalgic, especially seeing her son all grown up. But I have a feeling it's going to go right downhill because I'm not sure they know what to. I'm not sure 2 things. One, that the audience today would appreciate how smart it was, and how smart it could be as a political commentary, sort of Greek chorus type thing. And 2, I think you're right. The writing's not living up to it. It's not living up to what these characters have been known to do.
Okay.
So
yeah, I really point to the writing on this as the fault to me, because I think those actors, are especially Candice Bergen, tested actor. And it feels like they go for the easy laugh. Especially, I don't know what the blonde lady's name is, but the blonde kind of sidekick lady, like just all the
Corky Sherwood.
The multiple hot flash jokes were just way too much for me. I will say that episode 1 features a cameo by Hillary Clinton, which I was not expecting. That was I thought she did a nice job with it. So I don't know, but I won't be tuning in for much more of it.
Okay. So that one sounds like a maybe a miss for some.
I've got them on my TiVo, so I'm definitely going to go back and watch them.
So, and then the other show is New Amsterdam, which is a medical drama. I know the lead actor in that one. He came over from The Blacklist, where he played Tom. Which Blacklist was a show I watched for many years. I kind of gave up after like 4 or 5 seasons, just because it gotten to a point where I was done with it. But it was getting a little long in the tooth, shall we say, for me. Some people may still enjoy it, but. Tell me about New Amsterdam. What's it about? Lisa, if you can.
I'll let Joanne take the lead on this one, and I'll chime in.
Well, he apparently is a new administrator in a hospital, and he plans on doing things differently than just make money. Okay. My biggest issue right now, the first episode is the only one I watched, but for the first 10 minutes, I kept thinking that he was going to grab a phone and call Red, because he's so identifiable with the Blacklist. And he hasn't had enough time. Right. I don't think he's had enough time to separate himself from that Tom Keene role. He had a very powerful role in that show. Yeah. But by the end of the episode, I was saying, okay, this can go somewhere. I think he can do something with it. It's sort of I stopped watching The Resident because it got too dark and black about the insides of working of a hospital. This one looks like it'll be a lot better. That they're more looking at the good side and not always focusing on the bad underbelly. So I have a lot of hopes for it. Again, it's in my TiVo, so hopefully I can catch up with it. But my first impression was I would use your rule, Dom, and go the 6 and see what happens.
Okay.
This show, it's based on an actual book that was written by a doctor who worked at Bellevue Hospital, which is kind of like a humongous hospital in New York. And I always watch medical shows with Greg, who my husband is the chair of emergency medicine at UCLA. So, but he's worked, and his entire career has been in the emergency department. And now as an administrator, I was watching with him just to see like, what's his reaction going to be to this? Cause a lot of times he'll turn off medical shows, and he definitely, I think, enjoyed this. There was one particular scene where he said, pause that. And Joanne, you might remember this, where the two characters that are sort of having a little bit of a dalliance are walking down the hallway and discussing a case, but they're very leisurely while they're discussing their romance at the same time. And Greg said, just FYI, that if that patient were really having that situation, they wouldn't be strolling along. They'd be running to the OR. So, so you have a little bit of that, but it's interesting that he, from a medical perspective, hung with most of it. And I did say to him, "Is there stuff like that going on really in the ER? Like, do I need to be worried that when you go up to work?" And he said, "I stay out of that kind of stuff." So there are relationships in this, and then at the end of the first episode, you have the issue with the fact that the doctor actually becomes patient, and so it'll be interesting as the story goes on to see that play out, because in my experience, doctors don't make great patients. So,
well, Lisa, off podcast, I'm going to have to get your take. I would love to have Greg's take on The Resident, because I gave it up because I couldn't take it after a while. So I'd love to hear what he says about that one.
Yeah, I bet he was fun watching ER with Greg.
Yeah, he used to say, he used to point out all the little, they shouldn't have done that, and this is wrong, and
it's like
they just put a pediatric oxygen mask on that old man.
It's like me with anything having to do with computers on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't watch with me, except for Mr. Robot.
But we'll be watching this one.
Yes. Okay. Good. Maybe I'll try to pick that up. So. I think that covers all the shows we had. Of course, there are many more new shows that are out there that we just didn't have time to cover. And there's more shows coming because nowadays shows don't all start in the fall like they used to when I was a kid. We have streaming shows, and we have shows that start in after the World Series. There's a few coming that I've been looking forward to. There's some coming in January, so that sort of thing. But we kind of just picked this for a little bit of nostalgia to say, hey, this is when a lot of new shows are coming out, and this is a handful that we thought were interesting. So that all said, to the listeners, what do you think of these shows if you've watched them? Or are there shows that you're watching that we didn't mention that you would recommend and you have something to say about? We'd love to hear about it. So if you go to sqpn.com/secrets, or to the StarQuest Facebook page, just look for SQPN on Facebook, and leave us feedback on this episode there, or send us an email to secrets@sqpn.com. Let us know. We'd love to find out. We have we're going to be discussing, of course, some current shows coming up on the Secrets of Movies and TV shows that are ongoing. Some maybe that have ended. I'm still working on which ones, but I think we're going to be doing a show on SEAL Team, which has been a lot of fun watching that. It's in its second season. And maybe Mr. Robot, which is its last season is coming up, which is really fascinating, both psychological story, but also computer related, and maybe the most accurate computer related show on TV. Everything they do with computers is completely accurate and plausible, which is amazing. Because you never see that. So anyway, all that said, so stick around. Be sure that you're subscribed to the podcast so that you get all of these future episodes. And we also talk about movies, and that we get some coming up on that. So subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn. We also post it to YouTube. We post the audio as an audio video on YouTube. Remember to leave a comment, to write a review, to like, to share, to click the bell on YouTube to get notifications, all those things, so that that all helps us get the word out about the show. We don't have a big budget for advertising, which is, in other words, we have none. So the way we get more listeners, the way the show grows, the way we reach more people is because you recommend it, you write reviews, you write comments and that sort of thing, and it helps us get the word out. So that said, just one last time, if you can go to sqpn.com/give and if you can help us out, continue our work, creating these many shows that we do and the many more we're planning on doing, sqpn.com/give. Until next time on the Secrets of Movies and TV Shows, Lisa Hendey, thank you for joining me and sharing these new fall TV shows.
Thanks, Tom, and thank you honestly for all you do for SQPN. I want to second the importance of supporting the giving campaign. SQPN has been a part of my life for over a decade now, and I can't wait to continue to watch and see how things grow, and I'm just grateful to you for all you do.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Joanne, thank you as well.
Thank you, and thank you, Dom, as well. Again, like Lisa, I've been a fan of SQPN for years, so this has been really great, and you're doing a great job, so thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Movies and TV Shows on StarQuest. This is Dom Bettinelli again. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and that you'll help us keep producing the podcast you love. Thank you for your generosity. To make your pledge and find out about the free thank you gifts we'd like to send you, visit sqpn.com/give. That's sqpn.com/give.